Hello friends, it's your boy Jeff here with you again. This video is going to be another in a semi regular continuing series of mine called The Flip Zone, where I talk about, instead of music, I talk about reading materials. Mostly comics, but not limited to just comics. So, disclaimer time once again, if you're here thinking that there's going to be records or music shown or played, not in this video. So turn back now if that's not your thing. For those of you who are still here, the subject of this brief video, brief-ish, I'll try not to ramble too bad, is Stephen King. Now, 2019 here seems to be a big year for anniversaries, especially 50th anniversaries because of, the moon landing in '69 and Woodstock and my birthday, monumental anniversaries are coming up here. But that's not the only year that is sort of important to me. This year marks the 40th year that I've read Stephen King books. Without a doubt, beyond any stretch of imagination, he is the champ when it comes to authors that I follow. I don't think there's anybody else that I've followed longer and whose books I own more of than Stephen King. So the reason I'm doing this video is to explain that and to show you a gift that I got probably about 3 weeks ago, towards the beginning of August here, which really coincides with the whole anniversary theme. Now, in '79, I was in 4th grade. I know, a 4th grader really shouldn't be reading Stephen King books, but I was a voracious reader. Still am to a certain degree. Like I said, I don't have as much time as I used to sit back and read, and I'm not the world's fastest reader. I do okay, but I'm certainly not as fast as someone like my wife who can tear through a book in a day or two. So yeah, it takes me a little bit longer than that. But as a kid, I was reading everything. And in '79, there were no VCRs. There was maybe one kid I knew who had a VCR. They were super expensive back then. Nobody had them. So if you wanted to watch something on TV, you had to rearrange your life so you could be in front of that screen at that appointed time to catch whatever show you wanted. Now, in '79, what got me interested in Stephen King was the TV movie version of Salem's Lot, which I'm sure most of you who are of a certain age probably remember when it first came out on TV with David Soul. He was the main character, Ben Mears, among other stars, and caught my eye. It was a vampire story, and of course I was into monsters back then, the movie Monsters. I still am. And I watched it, scared the crap out of me. I know looking at it now, it looks kind of cheesy, but, to my little kid brain, it did the trick. It worked. And, of course, relating back to the VCR comment, the big thing that used to be, that really isn't anymore, were novelizations of movies. So I read all kinds of novelizations of movies that were out, from Star Wars and Empire, the first couple of Halloween movies, you name it. Probably anything that was supernatural or science fiction-y, I probably read it in a novelization form. So when I watched Salem's Lot, of course, I wanted to read the book because I knew there was a book of it, and I wanted to see how it compared, how it measured up, if it was better or worse, whatever. So I got the paperback. I should have grabbed it to show you. I still have the original paperback from '79, and read it, and that scared the crap out of me even worse. So that's really where Stephen King hooked me. So this past month, my friend George came up from Southern Illinois. I think I mentioned this in a different video. And he brought me a couple of presents, and one of them was a first edition of Salem's Lot. Now, I've got this in a plastic book cover to kind of protect the dust jacket. The dust jacket's in pretty delicate shape. You can see it's pretty worn here. And this is just to protect it and to keep it in one piece. But the book itself is in pretty nice shape. So I figured for the 40th anniversary, I reread it. And just as a quick aside, the way to tell if the copy you have is a first edition is, obviously it's going to say on this page right here, first edition. But in the case of Salem's Lot, there's also another telltale sign on the last page of the story. If you're going to be able to see that code right there. It says Q37. That's a telltale sign that you've got a first edition. So, and the size of this book is a little smaller than reprint editions that came later, which I don't know if I have an example to compare, but this book is a little bit smaller in hardcover compared to, I have a hardcover copy of this already, and it's bigger. So I was thrilled to get this. I mean, I'm not a hardcore first edition book collector, but just to have probably my favorite book by Stephen King as a first edition was a really nice gift. So George, if you're watching this, thank you once again. I think he said he had the first edition of The Shining too, which maybe I can talk him out of. We'll see. But between this and the book It, which part 2 of the movie version is coming out, I think, next month. I really enjoyed part 1 of It, and it was a book that I had in paperback, and I tried reading it, kind of when it was new. I think I read it like a year or two after it came out, and I never finished it. It held my interest to a point, and then, it's like 1,000+ page monstrosity, of which King has written a few, and I just couldn't finish it, so I decided aside. So when the movie, the part 1 of It came out last year, I really liked it, and I decided to try it again. So I tracked down a hardcover copy of that, which is about this thick. I don't have it with me here, I have it at work. So I'm working on that now. I was about 100 pages into that book when George gave me this, and it kind of rekindled the fire in me to want to reread this. So I set It aside and I read this instead, and now I'm back to reading It again. So I'm on a big Stephen King kick here for my personal 40th anniversary with the guy. Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of his most famous books, I think. I mean, I know it was remade. There was a TV version of it remade probably about 10 years ago, I think. And it was okay. Nothing is really going to compare to the book. And the pictures that I have in my mind that I created, 40 years ago are still there. When I read this again, a lot of those old images came to my mind. And it was just an enjoyable experience, and it kind of rekindled my desire to read King. So I got the idea because I'm not really, like I said, I'm not really a big hardcover book collector, but for Stephen King, I made an exception. And my dog keeps barking. Hold on, let me pause this video. Hold on 1 second. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. As I was saying, I kind of switched over from paperbacks of Stephen King to hardcovers in like the mid 80s, like with The Talisman, which was a book that he co-wrote with Peter Straub. That was actually a surprise for my ma, because you had to wait a year for the paperback version of the book to come out after the hardcover was released. So, and again, in 1984, I think when the book came out, you know, there were like 2 or 3 bookstores in every mall that we went to, and there were just stacks of copies of that book everywhere, and I just wanted it, but of course, the hardcover is more expensive. And one day I came home from school and it was there on the kitchen table, and my mom bought it for me as a surprise. She's like, I know you wanted this book so much, but I didn't want you to wait a whole year. So that kind of turned me to starting to pick up hardcovers of King's books. And with a few exceptions, that's pretty much what I did from then till now. So I have an entire bookcase downstairs, which is nothing but King, and 3/4 of it are hardcover editions. So what I decided to do between getting the Salem's Lot and getting the hardcover of It a couple months ago, I decided to go whole hog and shoot for a collection of King that's all hardcover, as I can find them. I mean, I'm not going to try and spend a ton of money on it. And I'm not sure that every single book of his is available in hardcover, but I know most of them are. So, first stop for me was Half Price Books. This was last weekend, and I picked up like 5 King books that I have in paperback, but I'm going to replace with hardcover. Like his first story collection, Night Shift. And I've put book covers on all of these too. Again, to protect them, and they just look nicer inside these book covers, don't they? So, I think this is mostly in chronological order. This was his first short story collection, and really, to me, it's his best. I mean, with other collections that came later, there were good stories, but they weren't, there were a couple dogs in there. Like Skeleton Crew was good. That was his next short story collection. That was all right. It had a few dogs in there, but mostly it wasn't as good as Night Shift. And then the one after that, which I think was Nightmares and Dreamscapes, was a little slightly worse than Skeleton Crew. And then Everything's Eventual was the one that came after that. And then Bizarre Bad Dreams, which came out just a couple years ago. There's some gems in there, but there's a lot of crap. For my money, Night Shift is his best short story collection. And a lot of movies have been made from the stories in this book. Probably most famously Children of the Corn. And I know horror fans are going to know Children of the Corn. So I got this. Then I also got The Dead Zone, which is another one I'm going to be rereading shortly. I'm going to be rereading most of these early King books. Probably not all of them, but I'm going to try rereading them in the hardcover edition before I add them to the collection. And of course, The Dead Zone, great book. Decent movie, but I like the book better, of course. Got that. Probably just going to add this to the collection. I don't really see myself rereading Cujo. It's okay. It's not his best. Among his early books, this one is probably the weakest, in my opinion. And I'm talking like the first 10 years of his writing career, from 74 to about 84, from Carrie to The Talisman. So this came out in, I think, 81. And if anyone has read the book, the nonfiction book that he did called On Writing, I think it was in that book he talks about being so drunk writing this book that he doesn't even remember writing it. Which kind of explains a few things. But, it's there's some interesting pictures of the man here too. It's just okay. Now, besides writing under his own name, he also wrote famously under the pseudonym of Richard Bachman, and he actually put out like 7 books under that name. This one here is probably among the best. Thinner. I've got this in paperback as well. The other Bachman books I have in a softcover collection. I think it came out in a hardcover collection, but I don't know if I'll actually replace it. We'll see. But this was a separate paperback on its own. And this was a first edition as well. And if you look, the picture that is not Stephen King. That is actually, I think, the photographer. I want to say, or it's his agent, or the friend of his agent, or somebody. They put a fake picture of him as Richard Bachman to try to throw people off the trail. But by the time this book came out, like the paperback version I have, I think is, it said along the top, Stephen King writing as Richard Bachman. So this was a good story. This is another one I'll be rereading. And then the last one I picked up is Pet Sematary, which I think is being remade as we speak. I think I saw a trailer for this. At the time, it was said that this was to King, this was the scariest book he'd ever written. I don't know if I'm going to reread this one or not, but I know I'm going to have it in my collection here as a hardcover. I don't have strong memories of this, so I may reread it, but we'll see. It didn't strike me as being super, super scary, but by this point in his career, it takes a lot, for me anyway, to get that same chill that I get out of Salem's Lot, which, on rereading it, Salem's Lot, it was like joining up with an old friend again, kind of, because it sparked a lot of memories, not only of what I pictured the book in my mind, but of the times when I reread that book many times as a kid. It's probably been at least 20 or 25 years since I read it last. So it was a pleasant rekindling of a friendship, if you will. Now, there's several more that I'm going to try to track down. There's a couple of other half prices around here that I'm going to try to find the rest. And, I want to have an entire shelf of books that are just hardcover King. That's all. Like I said, they don't have to be first editions. If they are, great. I just want them in hardcover. So, this is kind of my little salute to Stephen King. It's kind of a little project that I've started on. I like to do that for myself. I like to give myself little projects here and there to accomplish. And there are some books of his that I've never read. I haven't read every single thing of his, especially in the wake of the Dark Tower series ending in the early 2000s, probably mid 2000s. I was so pissed off with the way that series ended. I hated it, that I actually got rid of the last 3 books in that series. And I don't know if I'm going to reacquire them to have the whole Dark Tower set or not. That's how much I was pissed off by the way that story ended. But in the wake of that, I kind of swore him off for several years. So I think he was making noises that he was going to retire after the Dark Tower ended. And I know he didn't put anything out for a couple years there, and then he started writing again and releasing books again, because it's what he does. He writes every single day, I think, except for like 2 days a year. So he could say he's retiring, but probably until they put him in the ground, he's probably going to be writing something. But, there were some that I missed, like Doom McKee, I know I never read. Lisey's Story, never read that one. And there were others that I bought that I started and put down. They just didn't grab me, like Just After Sunset. That was a story collection, which was okay. Full Dark No Stars was another one. It was kind of like a he also put out several like novella collections where he would put like 4 longer stories out, like Different Seasons was one. 4 Past Midnight was another, where there would be, just 2 or 3 or maybe 4 long stories, not novel length, but not short story length, in a collection. And I read the first one in Full Dark No Stars, and it was pretty dark. Started the second one, and it kind of turned me off, so I ended up putting the book down. So that's one I may return to and try to finish. Eventually, I'll catch up with everything and I'll read everything of his, refresh my memory on some of the old stuff and get to the newer stuff and um, become acquainted with that. Again, I'm gonna wait until like some of his books I really don't like Gerald's Game, that was a real dog. Insomnia, which I still own, that was a real dog. You know, Stephen King isn't perfect. This isn't like total idol worship. I mean, I think he's a fantastic writer, but he's not perfect. He has written some garbage, and I think he even admits that. But the ratio of quality stuff to garbage is pretty high for him. He's written more books that I really love than ones that I really hate. And of course, The Dark Tower is the top of that list, the books that I really hate. I love the first three. Let's take it back. First four. Through Wizard and Glass. Those first four Dark Towers are great. And then 7 years went by between 4 and 5, and it was like, I think he was getting a lot of feedback from people saying, hey dude, when you gonna finish this story? I want to finish this before I die. I want to know what happens. And then in quick succession, he put out 5, 6, and 7 in the space of like 18 months. And that was it. So to me, it felt like a big middle finger to the fans, especially the end of the last book. It still drives me crazy. So, like I said, this isn't just blind idol worship here, but rereading his old stuff has kind of rekindled my joy of reading, so I want to keep that ball rolling. So I'm going to finish it, without a doubt. By hook or by crook, I'll finish it, and hopefully I'll see the second part of the movie when it comes out. And as I go along, I'll hopefully be able to track down the other hardcovers that I'm missing. I think there's only probably like 4 or 5 that I really need in hardcover to complete the set. So, and of course, he's coming out with a new book called The Institute, I think next month, which I already have pre-ordered on Amazon. So that'll be coming up soon too. He's kind of hit a renaissance with me the last few years, starting with books like Under the Dome. I really enjoyed, even though that was another 1,000+ page monster. I plowed through that book like it was nothing. It was that entertaining to me. 11/22/63 is another one that I thought recaptured the same kind of fire and quality writing that was apparent in a lot of his early books. And the Bill Hodges trio of books that came out over the last couple of years wasn't really monster related or supernatural related. It was more like a mystery story, but they were well done. They're more or less suspense novels. And I enjoyed those a lot too. So when he wants to, he can still crank out a good book. So I'm still a fan 40 years later, no matter what, even through the ups and downs. And holy shit, it's 23 and a half minutes I've been rambling about this. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. That's pretty much what I wanted to say about King, and just wanted to tell you about my little project. And as I pick up other hardcovers as I go along, I'll show them to you. Just because. And if nobody's watching this, then I'm just making this for myself. But I'm hoping somebody's watching. So leave a comment and tell me what your favorite King books are, if you have any. And if you haven't read any of his books before, that's the bottom of the pile. Start with this one. If you've never read King, don't start with Carrie. That was his first book. Not that good of a book. This was his second book, and this is what really put him on the map for me. So if you've never read King before, read this. And if you've seen the TV movies and you think, it's kind of a sucky story, no, read this book, and you will be enlightened. Okay. There you go. That's it for now. Thank you for watching if you made it to the end of this flip zone. And I'll see you again soon. So till then, peace. And yeah, have a great day, everyone. Love you.